just to begin with right now, is that there's very friable or erodible layers, and then there's hard layers of, so there's erodible layers of shale and then hard layers of sandstone. And that's sort of what is revealed by the trails that are here. And so we're going to be thinking about, how do you make trails or maintain trails in a landscape like that? And so we don't know the answer. We're just at the beginning of looking at that.
Right.
There's been a great history of people coming out here and trying to, maintain the trails and things like that. So we're going to start thinking about all of those things.
Okay. In that same regard, you talked about what is management. I've got a master plan. You come up with a management plan. What does it mean to manage the landscape and manage the human use? And can you give me an example of what type of things we're talking about?
Right. So a good example is in the landscape is we might have invasive species here. And those are plants that are not native to the area. They might outcompete the native plants. They might transform the whole place and damage it ecologically. So the only way to deal with that is through management. You can't leave it, it will just get worse. So if you get ahead of it, it might not be a big challenge. If you let it go a long time, it might be impossible to solve. So that's the kind of degree to which we want to find. So that's kind of a landscape management thing. We also know that there's a kind of benign idea about nature that if you just leave it alone, everything will be fine. But what we realize in looking at historically at places is that the Native Americans had a very active role in the management of landscapes, and they made beautiful, happy hunting grounds. And that was not a passive thing. You could consider it a natural form of management if you think about the Indians and their relationship to the land. So that's landscape management, and we'll explore all different types of aspects of that. Then there's also, we have to manage, just like your teacher managed you in third grade. We need to manage the people. We want to actually increase the use of Turkey Mountain, but we want to do it in a way that doesn't destroy the resource. That we want to be able to not love it to death, right? And there's a challenge there because, the more people come, it could result in degradation. But we think that there will be a way to integrate the two, and because the goal of management, both the landscape management and the people management, so to speak, is preservation, right? We want to preserve this resource forever for the future, for the city. And the preservation might be saving something that's here, and it also even might be rebuilding something. If you think about architectural preservation, you always have those two aspects to it. It's the same here. The interesting difference in terms of preservation is a landscape is a living thing, and it's changing and it's dynamic, whereas an antique house doesn't change if it's not falling apart. So we will try to start to talk about those kinds of concepts with people at the public meeting and get into a dialogue about that. There's places here where the trails are fine, and then there's places where they get to a difficult place and it's very eroding. And if it's allowed to just stay that way, it will become impassable. It could become very damaging. So there might be places where we bring in different kinds of solutions. I don't know what they would be, but say like a bridge, or say a kind of regrading of an area to create a turn that doesn't wash out and continue to erode. So there might be moments of that kind of thing, and exploring where that would be, specifically in the plan. Another thing is there's a lot of trails that were just made by people all over the place, and we have a survey that actually shows all of them. It might be that what we want to do is actually limit the number of trails to the best ones, or the ones that are the least damaging, or they have the most interesting things along them, and then close off and let other parts kind of heal back and just become solid again. And you could imagine if you cut something up in too many small pieces, you start to kind of break it down too much, and that might be something that is happening with the trails now. So we're going to want to explore that too.
Okay.